As the Lakers look for any type of trade to bolster the roster, primarily shooting and scoring, that's one of the big things that the Lakers really need, they have shifted focus to Terrence Ross. Terrence Ross is a target that the Lakers have coveted for years now. There have been rumors of Terrence Ross to the Lakers for the last 2-3 years now, and Orlando is getting more and more likely to trade Ross. For the last couple years, they tried to get a first-round pick for Terrence Ross, and just no teams were biting. So Terrence Ross is kind of looked at as a guy that could be had for relatively cheap. His production has gone down every year the last 2 years or so. Just 2 years ago, he was averaging about 15 points a game and having a really great season for the Orlando Magic. But Orlando's kind of going with the youth movement, trying to figure out what guys are they going to keep, what guys are they going to unload and maybe package and trades and stuff as they look forward to the future. And they got a very good young team. They've gone on quite the run the last month or so. Really rattling off some solid quality wins, even some road wins against the Celtics, and they're beating notable, what many perceive to be quality playoff teams. So Orlando's a very good, young, exciting team that has a lot of potential for the future, and it makes sense to unload some of the guys that they have that are veterans that aren't really getting the play time. Terrence Ross, maybe even the Lakers could look at a Gary Harris, but nonetheless, Ross seems to be a player that likely would be very gettable and at a very cheap price. He's still relatively young. He's only 31 years old. Got some decent size. Obviously, he's not the wing depth, the 6'8", 6'9" wing that the Lakers would really covet. But still, he's a guy that could come in very cheap. He's not having the greatest season as far as scoring wise, but he's also not getting a ton of the play time that he has in the past. He's not getting he's not the number 1, 2, 3 option anymore. He's kind of the role guy that comes in little spots, gets a handful of shots, but he's still shooting 36% from three, just under 37%. So he would be one of our best 3-point shooters. And he's shooting 47% from the field in general. Also a guy that could come in and provide scoring. He's a guy that could get his own shot. He's a guy that doesn't really need setup. He can be a guy that can play on the ball, could play off the ball, could be a catch and shoot guy. If he could get back to being that 15-point-a-game guy, which again, that was just 2 years ago that he was able to do that, but he also had a more significant role, which he would probably have on the Lakers, right? I mean, you could make an argument to have him be your starting 2 guard over, Patrick Beverley, hopefully. He's not a lockdown defender, but he's not a bad defender. He's solid defensively, and look, Darvin Ham's defensive systems, defensive schemes could really help. He's taller than, 6'1", 6'2", so that by itself is going to be a huge factor, right, and a huge upgrade. He's got good size at 6'6". He's, it's your traditional shooting guard, small forward combo, and a guy that could, again, come in, take off some of the scoring load, take off some of the scoring burden, a veteran that knows what it takes to play in this league, a guy that has, put up big games, big numbers. He's a guy that he could go get you 20 and it wouldn't surprise anybody, right? That's something that the Lakers really need. They need guys that can shoot the ball, but also go and just score, go get you a bucket. So Terrence Ross is a guy that makes sense for them to look at. And also Mo Bamba. So the Lakers are also interested in Mo Bamba. So are several other teams like the Raptors, the Clippers. Many other teams are looking at Mo Bamba as well. And Orlando perceives Mo Bamba as their greatest trade asset because he's still relatively young, 24 years old, 7 feet tall. He's a guy that could be a really solid two-way center for now and the future. An incredible 7'10" wingspan. I mean, the dude is absolutely solid. He was a top pick. He was the 6th pick in the 2018 draft, and a guy that many believe could end up being a just solid center in this league, and a guy that the Lakers could really covet and look at as okay, this is a guy that we could have for now that could play some solid minutes, but also be a guy that could really help in the future. And especially for Orlando, again, Bamba is kind of the odd man out, right? Especially with Bol kind of coming into his own and kind of being what they envisioned, Mo to be as well. And so it's well, they don't need 2 of those. And so it's okay, well, let's go and trade Mo Bamba. So maybe the Lakers could look at getting both of them, take one of their first round picks, go get Terrence Ross, and Mo Bamba and try to work something out in a deal like that. Again, it's just going to come down to the bidding war and what is Bamba's value, right? Like, so for example, like Terrence Ross again, Terrence Ross probably goes for a second, maybe 2 seconds. I don't see anybody giving up a first for Terrence Ross. And look, the Orlando Magic have tried for years to get a first for Terrence Ross, and no team has bid, right? And now time's running out, right? So do you just lose him or do you get something for him? So at this point, I could see them saying, okay, well, we'll give up Terrence Ross for a second, maybe 2 seconds. So the Lakers, I think, if they want, I think Terrence Ross is an absolute gettable player. I think he's a guy that the Lakers could really easily get. That's not going to cost a ton. Mo Bamba, on the other hand, that's a guy that I could see maybe a bit of a bidding war, but what is he going to go for? Right? I mean, he's not it's not like this is a guy right now that's putting up, 2010, and it's a guy that you're just like, man, this is more of like a project that could have potential and big payoff, right? He's a sizable center that could spread the floor a little bit, that, could be a guy that could come in, provide a nice little scoring punch. He's 8 points for his career. A season ago, he did average just under 11 points. But he's a guy that, he could get you, a block or two a game. He's a guy that can, disrupt and be a solid interior defender, shot blocker. He'd be a guy that could really help alleviate some of the pressure off of Anthony Davis. He's also a guy like you could play alongside Anthony Davis with his ability to stretch the floor. That could really help. Although he's not taking a ton of threes, but he takes about, 2.5 to 3 3-pointers a game. And he's shooting. This season, he's shooting about 38%. He's about 35% from three for his career. This season, he's shooting just under 39%, which would be incredible if that could continue, right? If he could give you like 2 or 3 threes a game, that would be fantastic. But even the last 2 years, this year and last year, he's averaged about 38% from three on just under 3 attempts per game. So again, that's a guy that could come in and really kind of help. Give you a couple buckets, give you, 10 to 15 points, especially if you got Russ. I mean, think of the chemistry that Russ has had with the big man. Like, I could see Mo Bamba really benefiting from a Russell Westbrook. Like, Russ comes in, I could see him and Russ kind of running that 2-man game, and Bamba kind of just getting 10 to 15 points per game rather easily. Right? He could be a pick and pop threat. He could be a guy, and you kind of could round out your center spot, right? Like Damian Jones, he's getting time, but the Lakers don't seem too high on him. Again, Mo Bamba would be a nice piece for now and the future, 24 years old. So he's a guy that's going to need to be paid, right? So, what is his value? What is his trade value? Could you get Terrence Ross and Mo Bamba for a first? Maybe a protected first. Because again, Mo Bamba, as great as he may become, he's an unknown. He could still go either way. He could just be an average center in this league that gets you 10 points a game, and is a solid backup, maybe a starter on the right team with the right depth and stuff like that. Or he could end up being, the next great center in the league, and if the Lakers could figure out a way to get both of these guys, I think you got to do it, right? If you can get Terrence Ross, if you can get Mo Bamba, maybe even look at trying to get like a Gary Harris. The problem is you would need quite a bit. You need more than just Patrick Beverley and Kendrick Nunn if you wanted to go get Gary Harris. So very likely, I would imagine that they'd focus on these two. But let's say you can't get Mo Bamba, right? Can you get Gary Harris? Right? Like, so could you get Terrence Ross and Gary Harris? Because Gary Harris, that's another solid 3, sizable guy, 28 years old still. So it's another guy that's still very young. He's a guy that can, again, go get his own bucket. He's basically another Terrence Ross. So you're basically going and getting 2 Terrence Rosses, which could be beneficial and could be, just huge in general for this team. And he's a guy that, again, can go get you 15 a night. He's a guy that shoots, 36 to 38% from 3. This season, he's shooting 43%, but he's only played 6 games so far. So he would be a guy that we'd have to kind of wait around for. But he even in limited time, he's averaging basically 10 minutes a game or 10 points a game. So that's somebody else that we could look at. But most likely, I would imagine these two would be the target that the Lakers would be looking for. These two would be the guys that the Lakers would be trying to acquire. You get a solid center, especially right now without Anthony Davis. Get a solid center that could help now, that could also help and be a piece for the future. He could be your center that you build around for the next, 7 to 10 years. That could be very solid, especially if he can kind of develop and come into his own, be that 3-and-D solid, sort of just solid defender, right? That's what we want. Nobody's necessarily thinking he's the next Embiid, but can he be, something close? Can he be 25% of that, to where he's just like, he could be a legit starting center on a championship contender? Like, that's what the Lakers are hoping and looking for. Like, this is a guy, like an Andrew Bynum or something like that. Come in, play some solid minutes, give you some solid buckets, stuff like that. That's what I would imagine the Lakers would be looking at him for. And then Terrence Ross being that scoring threat, that 3-and-D style shooter. Again, not the greatest defender in the world, but he's got the size, he's got the intangibles. He could be a solid defender. I mean, look at what Darvin Ham was able to do with Russ, right? He was able to turn Russ into a really good defender. So can he do that with Terrence Ross? At least Terrence Ross be a serviceable defender. If you can get anybody that can start over Patrick Beverley, I am all for it, right? I would rather have Terrence Ross starting at the 2 spot than Patrick Beverley. So you could have Dennis Schroeder, Terrence Ross, right now have, Walker at the 3, LeBron at the 4, and then Bamba at the 5 until Anthony Davis comes back. Then Anthony Davis can play the 5. Or you could go, and ideally what I'd like is for LeBron to play the point guard. And then when AD gets back, you could even go Walker, Ross, LeBron, Davis, and Bamba. That's a pretty good starting 5, right? You got shooting, you got defense, you got scoring, you got shot blocking, you got everything, right? And then try to have Schroeder and Russ kind of come off the bench, or maybe you look to move Russ at that point, because at this point maybe you're kind of all in and you're just like, okay, well, let's go take the other first and go make another big move. That's something that they could do too. But I don't know, very likely they're probably just going to land Terrence Ross. That would be my guess, is that they get Terrence Ross for like a second. So, it's probably like Patrick Beverley for Terrence Ross. Maybe they could get some like random throw in or something that the Lakers would like as like, a young project or something. Maybe you could get something like that. But realistically, my guess would be that they just get Terrence Ross. I would love to kind of figure out a way to get Gary Harris too. Like, if you could get Terrence Ross and then just kind of get Gary Harris kind of thrown in, that could be solid, because Gary Harris only makes $13 million as well. So it's just my concern is that Mo Bamba is very likely going to be the guy that, we have to go into a bidding war for. And if we have to go into a bidding war, I just don't think that we can outbid other teams. But if you could go like, while everyone's trying to kill each other for Bamba, if you could sneak in and get Terrence Ross and say, Gary Harris, that's like $36.5 million combined, and maybe give up, Patrick Beverley, Kendrick Nunn, Damian Jones, and, JTA or something like that, and give up, 2 or 3 seconds, and then still have your firsts, and then maybe have have Russ and 2 first-round picks, to where maybe you could go and make that big home run move come the trade deadline or whatever, but you still have Gary Harris and Terrence Ross to kind of help come in and be 2 guys that could get you 10 to 15 a night. Like, that could be very solid. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Would you want Terrence Ross? Do you want Bamba? Do you want, Gary Harris? Would you be okay with like a Gary Harris and Terrence Ross? How would you feel about it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let me know however you feel down in the comment section below.